The employment center on New Kepler Station smelled like desperation and recycled air, which Jake Morrison figured was probably appropriate given his current circumstances. His last paycheck from Terraforming Solutions had bounced 3 weeks ago, right around the time corporate headquarters announced they were restructuring their human resources to maximize efficiency through automation. In layman's terms, robots were cheaper than engineers, and Jake's expertise in atmospheric processing suddenly ranked somewhere below obsolete on the job market relevance scale. Morrison, Jacob, called the clerk, a woman whose enthusiasm for her work had clearly died sometime during the previous decade. "I've got something that might interest you. Zalani Collective, agricultural support on Thera Prime. Pays well, includes housing and meals." Jake perked up. "What's the catch?" "No catch. They specifically requested human workers. Says here you'd be doing essential village support services." "What kind of services?" She squinted at her screen. "Doesn't specify. But look at this salary figure." Jake looked. Then looked again. Then wondered if the display was malfunctioning, because the number had enough zeros to fund a small terraforming operation. "That's annually. That's quarterly. I'll take it." 3 days later, Jake found himself aboard a transport ship with 12 other humans, all sporting the slightly dazed expression of people whose financial problems had been solved too easily. His bunkmate, a former hydroponics technician named Pete, kept muttering about gift horses and dental examinations. "Think about it," Pete said for the dozenth time. "Mysterious job, incredible pay, alien species nobody talks much about. When has that combination ever ended well in the movies? When have movies ever accurately represented gainful employment?" Jake countered. "Besides, the Zalani have been Federation members for 50 years. They're known for peaceful agricultural communities and advanced biotechnology. What's the worst that could happen?" This question would later rank among Jake's top 10 famous last words. Thera Prime was beautiful in a way that made Jake's engineering brain itch with curiosity. The Zalani village sprawled across rolling hills like a living organism, its structures growing organically from the landscape rather than being imposed upon it. Buildings breathed with subtle rhythm, their walls shifting color in response to some internal logic. Pathways glowed with soft bioluminescence, pulsing in patterns that seemed almost musical. The Zalani themselves were equally fascinating. Roughly humanoid but clearly evolved along different lines, they moved with fluid grace that made Jake feel like a malfunctioning robot in comparison. Their carapaces shimmered with iridescent colors that shifted based on mood and social context, and their large compound eyes conveyed intelligence and warmth despite their alien structure. Queen Lixra was waiting when the transport landed, which surprised Jake until he realized that in a community of maybe 300 individuals, the arrival of 12 humans probably qualified as a major event. She was tall, elegant, and possessed of a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. "Welcome, human friends," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Jake's chest. "I am Queen Lixra, and I am pleased you have chosen to join our community." Jake raised his hand tentatively. Your Majesty, I'm Jake Morrison. I was wondering if you could clarify exactly what our duties will involve." Her compound eyes focused on him with what he interpreted as approval. "Direct questions. Excellent. Your species' straightforward communication style will be most helpful for our collaborative projects." "What kind of collaborative projects?" "Essential ones. Projects that will ensure the continuation of our people and the strengthening of bonds between our species." She gestured toward the village with one of her 4 arms. "But first, you must rest and acclimate. Understanding will come with time and trust." Jake's assigned dwelling was more luxurious than any apartment he'd ever inhabited, featuring a living wall that adjusted its color and texture based on his emotional state, furniture that molded itself to his preferred ergonomics, and a bathroom with amenities he couldn't identify but that somehow left him feeling better than any shower in human space. His first official task was helping adjust atmospheric processors to accommodate hybrid environmental requirements, which seemed straightforward enough until he realized the Zilani systems were entirely biological. Instead of mechanical components, he was working with organ-like structures that responded to touch, emotion, and something the Zilani called cooperative resonance. The atmosphere generators are temperamental, explained Kes, a young Zilani who'd been assigned as his cultural liaison. They require harmony between organic and synthetic elements. Your human perspective provides unique insights. Jake stared at what appeared to be a giant lung connected to a network of crystalline tubes. I usually work with machines that don't have feelings. These do not have feelings exactly, but they respond to intention and emotional compatibility. Perhaps try speaking to it. Speaking to it. Yes. Tell it what you wish it to accomplish. Jake felt ridiculous, but his paycheck was large enough to accommodate ridiculous. Hello, atmospheric processor. I'd like you to maintain optimal oxygen-nitrogen ratios while incorporating trace elements suitable for human respiration. The organic components pulsed with warm golden light, and the air quality immediately improved. Excellent. Kessa's carapace shifted to pleased purple hues. You have natural aptitude for biointegration. That evening, Jake attempted to adjust his quarters lighting system and accidentally triggered what Kes later explained was a courtship illumination sequence. His room strobed through the entire visible spectrum while emitting melodic tones that apparently announced his availability for romantic partnership to the entire village. How do I turn it off? Jake shouted over the musical light show. You must complete the sequence or wait for it to conclude naturally, Kes replied, barely containing what Jake suspected was alien laughter. How long does it last? Approximately 2 hours. Jake spent the next 2 hours hiding in his bathroom while his quarters serenaded the village with his inadvertent mating display. By morning, he'd received 16 flower bouquets, 37 fruit baskets, and what appeared to be several proposals of marriage written in bioluminescent script he couldn't read. Perhaps tomorrow we will review proper lighting protocols, Kes suggested diplomatically. Perhaps tomorrow I'll just work in the dark, Jake muttered, wondering what other surprises his new job might have in store. 2 weeks into his employment with the Zilani Collective, Jake had developed a routine that mostly avoided triggering village-wide romantic announcements. His days began with bioatmospheric calibrations, continued through symbiotic crop maintenance, and concluded with cultural education sessions that left him feeling like he was simultaneously the smartest and dumbest person in the galaxy. The crop symbionts require emotional stability to achieve optimal yield, Kes explained as they walked through fields of what Jake had learned to call thinking grain. The plants literally turned to follow their conversation, their leaf ears twitching with curiosity. Your human emotional range provides interesting nutritional complexity. I'm fertilizing crops with my feelings. Not fertilizing exactly. More like seasoning. The grain absorbs emotional resonance and converts it into enhanced nutritional profiles. Your confusion, for example, adds a particularly rich protein matrix. Jake paused to watch a cluster of grain stalks lean toward him expectantly. So my bewilderment is basically a dietary supplement? An excellent one. We have never achieved such consistent protein enhancement with purely Zilani emotions. This explained why his work assignments always seemed to involve standing near growing things while looking puzzled, which Jake had initially attributed to his supervisor's sadistic sense of humor. It also explained why the village's food had been tasting progressively better as his confusion about Zilani customs deepened. His relationship with the village had evolved beyond simple employment. The Zilani treated him less like a hired worker and more like a valued community member whose presence improved everyone's daily life. His quarters had gradually acquired amenities that seemed to anticipate his needs before he recognized them himself, and villagers had begun including him in social activities that required significant cultural translation. Jake, Kes said one afternoon as they tended a grove of fruit trees that hummed with contentment, may I ask you something personal? Sure. After the courtship light show incident, I'm pretty much an open book anyway. Do you intend to start a family someday? Jake nearly dropped his bioscanner. That's quite a shift in conversation topic. Why do you ask? Curiosity about human reproductive customs. We have been studying your species' approach to genetic continuation. Studying it for what purpose? Kessa's carapace shifted through several colors Jake had learned indicated internal conflict. The Zilani face certain challenges regarding our future population sustainability. What kind of challenges? Perhaps Queen Lixera should explain. She has requested another private consultation with you this evening. These consultations had been increasing in frequency, and Jake had begun to suspect they involved more than routine progress reports. Queen Lixera's questions had been growing progressively more personal, covering everything from his family background to his views on interspecies cooperation to his long-term life goals. That evening's meeting took place in the Queen's private chambers, a living space that seemed to be carved from a single enormous tree. The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescence, and the furniture adjusted itself to accommodate both human and Zilani physiology. Jake, Queen Lixera began, I must share something with you that may alter your understanding of your role here. Your Majesty, if this is about the atmospheric processor I accidentally taught to sing yesterday, I can probably fix that. It is not about atmospheric processors. It concerns the survival of my people. Her tone carried weight that made Jake set aside his usual deflective humor. I'm listening. The Zilani collective faces a crisis of genetic diversity. Our population has become too homogeneous over generations of careful breeding for emotional and biological harmony. We are dying out. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. How long do you have? Perhaps 3 generations before genetic problems become insurmountable. Perhaps fewer. She moved to a wall display that showed population projections, all trending downward. We have tried everything our science can devise. Genetic therapy, artificial diversification, selective breeding programs. Nothing has proven successful. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. That's terrible. But I'm not sure how an atmospheric engineer can help with genetic problems. Queen Lixera's compound eyes focused on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. You cannot help as an atmospheric engineer. But you can help as a human. The implications hit him like a malfunctioning gravity generator. You mean hybrid offspring? Human Zilani children who carry the genetic diversity necessary to revitalize our species while maintaining our cultural and biological identity. Jake sat down heavily in a chair that immediately molded itself to support his suddenly numb body. The job description said, Essential Village Support Services. It is the most essential service imaginable. The continuation of an entire species. And the other humans who were hired are participating in similar programs in other Zilani settlements. Though none have been approached directly by their settlement's leadership, as you have been. Jake's mind raced through the past 2 weeks, reinterpreting every interaction through this new lens. The luxury accommodations, the personal attention from the Queen, the emphasis on emotional compatibility and biological integration. You've been evaluating me. We have been getting to know each other. Compatibility is essential for successful hybridization. It cannot be forced or artificially induced. And if I'm not compatible, then you continue your current work, which benefits our community greatly, and we explore other options. She paused. But Jake, I must be honest with you about something else. More honest than, we need you to help repopulate our species. I have not told you this purely from duty to my people. Over these weeks, I have found myself genuinely drawn to your particular combination of competence and bewilderment, your instinct to help others even when you do not fully understand the situation, your ability to find humor in circumstances that would defeat others. Jake stared at her, trying to process the idea that an alien queen was essentially confessing romantic interest while simultaneously recruiting him for a breeding program. Your Majesty, Lixera. If we are to explore this possibility, formal titles seem counterproductive. Lixera. This is. I mean, I'm honored, and terrified, and confused, and I think I might be having some kind of existential crisis. Her carapace shifted to warm, amused colors. Your emotional complexity is one of your most attractive qualities. Take time to consider. This decision affects not only your life, but the future of our people. Jake nodded, his head spinning with implications he couldn't begin to untangle. As he left the Queen's chambers, he could have sworn he heard the village's atmospheric processors humming with what sounded distinctly like anticipation. Back in his quarters, he stared at his reflection in the biomirror and wondered when his life had shifted from job hunting to potential participation in the genetic salvation of an alien species. The mirror, responding to his emotional state, helpfully began displaying what appeared to be encouraging affirmations in bioluminescent script. "Not now," he told it. "I need to think, not receive motivational support from my bathroom fixtures." The mirror shifted to a neutral pattern, but Jake could have sworn it looked slightly offended. Jake spent the next 3 days in a state of productive avoidance, throwing himself into increasingly complex technical projects while his brain processed the revelation that his job description should have included potential genetic savior of alien species. His attempts to research human Zalani biological compatibility using the village's biodatabase resulted in what Kes diplomatically termed a comprehensive system-wide romantic response event. "The entire network is now convinced you are seeking courtship information," Kes explained as they watched the village's information displays cycle through what appeared to be dating advice in 16 different languages. "It has compiled compatibility profiles for every unmated Zalani in the settlement. How do I make it stop? You cannot. The system believes it is being helpful. It will continue providing romantic guidance until it determines you have achieved successful partnership or have definitively rejected the possibility." Jake watched his bioscanner display a message that roughly translated to, "Have you considered flowers? Zalani females appreciate bioluminescent flora. So the entire village database has become my wingman." An accurate assessment. This explained why every piece of equipment Jake touched had begun offering relationship advice, from atmospheric processors suggesting emotional synchronization protocols to crop monitors recommending fertility-enhancing nutritional supplements. Even the bathroom fixtures had gotten involved, with his shower providing what the translation software called confidence-boosting aromatherapy, and his mirror displaying daily affirmations about interspecies attraction. His private meeting with Queen Lixera, he corrected himself, was scheduled for that evening, and Jake had spent the week formulating questions, concerns, and a mental list of everything he needed to understand before making a decision that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of his entire existence. The conversation took place in the village's central garden, a living space that responded to the occupants' emotional states with shifting patterns of light and color. Jake's nervous energy was apparently causing the flowering trees to pulse with anxious yellow rhythms. "You have questions," Lixera observed. "The garden is practically broadcasting your mental state to the entire settlement." "Sorry. I'm not great with subtle emotional control." "Your emotional honesty is refreshing. Most species develop elaborate methods for concealing their true feelings. Ask your questions." Jake pulled out his mental list. First, the biological mechanics. How would this actually work? Are we talking about some kind of advanced artificial process, or natural biological reproduction with some technological assistance for genetic optimization? The process requires genuine emotional and physical compatibility. Her carapace shifted to reassuring blue-green hues. Nothing clinical or impersonal. Second question, what would happen to any children? Would they be raised Zalani, human, or some combination? They would be raised as citizens of both cultures, with full rights in both human and Zalani societies. Their education would encompass both technological traditions and biological sciences. Third, what about the other humans in the program? How many people are we talking about? Currently, 43 humans across 12 Zalani settlements. All volunteers who were informed of the program's true nature before making their decision. Jake blinked. Informed before deciding. But I've been here for weeks. Lixera's emotional color shifted to what Jake had learned indicated embarrassment. Your situation is unique. The others were recruited through agencies that specialize in interspecies collaboration programs. You were hired through standard employment channels because I specifically requested you. You specifically requested Jake Morrison, atmospheric engineer from Earth, without ever having met me. I requested a human with your particular combination of technical expertise, adaptability, and emotional resilience. Your employment records indicated unusual success in solving problems through unconventional methods and maintaining positive relationships with diverse teams. Jake considered this. You hired me based on my personnel file. I hired you based on 14 different compatibility assessments, 3 psychological profiles, and a recommendation from the Federation's Interspecies Relations Council that you possessed ideal characteristics for cross-cultural integration. There's an Interspecies Relations Council. There are many things about Federation operations that individual citizens are not typically informed about. This opened entire categories of questions Jake hadn't known to ask. So this isn't just about the Zilani. This is part of some larger program. It is part of ensuring the survival and prosperity of all Federation species. The Zilani situation is urgent, but we are not the only species facing genetic challenges. Jake felt the weight of implications settling on his shoulders like a gravity field. How many other species need human genetic diversity? Currently, 6 confirmed, with 3 more under evaluation. And humans are just okay with this. Humans who participate are volunteers, fully informed, and well compensated. The program has been active for 12 years with extremely positive results for all involved parties. Jake walked to a fountain that gurgled with bioluminescent water, trying to organize his thoughts. Lixera, I need to ask something personal. Of course. Setting aside the species survival aspect, setting aside the program and the genetics and all the larger implications, do you actually want this? With me, specifically? Her compound eyes focused on him with an intensity that made the surrounding plants glow brighter. Jake Morrison, in 3 weeks you have accidentally proposed to half my village, taught our atmospheric processors to sing harmony, improved our crop yields through sheer confusion, and somehow managed to make our biodatabase fall in love with you. You approach every challenge with determination to help, even when you have no idea what you are doing. You make me laugh, which is not an easy thing to accomplish. So that's a yes. That is a very enthusiastic yes, coupled with the knowledge that our compatibility assessments indicate extremely high probability of successful partnership on multiple levels. Jake nodded slowly, feeling pieces of an impossible decision starting to coalesce into something resembling clarity. I have one more question. Ask it. If I say yes, and if this works, and if we have children who are part of saving your species, what happens to us? Do we just become biological partners in a breeding program, or do we get to be more? Lixera moved closer, and Jake could feel the warmth radiating from her carapace. Jake Morrison, I am hoping we get to be much more. The genetic program brought you here, but what I feel for you has nothing to do with species survival and everything to do with the way you make me believe that impossible things are simply challenges waiting for creative solutions. The garden around them pulsed with golden light, and Jake realized that for the first time since arriving on Thera Prime, his emotional state was causing the bioresponsive environment to display joy rather than confusion. In that case, he said, I think my answer is yes. The garden exploded in a symphony of color and light that could probably be seen from orbit, and Jake suspected that the entire village had just been informed that their genetic salvation program had acquired its first enthusiastic participant. 6 months later, Jake had adapted to married life with an alien queen with surprising ease, though he still occasionally triggered village-wide celebrations by accidentally activating ceremonial lighting sequences. The hybridization process had proved far more complex and beautiful than either of them had anticipated, involving not just biological compatibility but deep emotional synchronization that transformed them both. The first indicators are positive, Dr. Velnara announced, her scanning equipment humming with satisfied chirps. The Zolani medical specialist had become Jake's favorite person on Thera Prime, mainly because her bedside manner consisted of practical optimism and an endless supply of snacks. Genetic integration proceeding within optimal parameters. Jake squeezed Lixira's hand, or rather, one of her hands, since she had 4 and he'd learned to appreciate the mathematical possibilities this created. So we're actually going to be parents? Multiple parents, based on these readings. Zolani reproduction typically produces clutches of 3 to 5 offspring. Multiple. Jake's voice cracked slightly. As in, more than 2. Most likely 4, Dr. Velnara confirmed cheerfully. All showing excellent hybrid characteristics. Enhanced cognitive flexibility from the human genetic contribution, improved empathic sensitivity from Zolani heritage, and fascinating new neural pathway developments that suggest these children will possess capabilities neither parent species has achieved independently. Lixira's carapace glowed with maternal pride. They will be the first of a new generation. Bridge builders between our peoples. Jake stared at the medical readings, trying to process the reality of becoming a father to 4 hybrid children who might possess abilities that transcended anything either species had imagined. I should probably read some parenting books. Human parenting books may not apply, Dr. Velnara observed. These children will require entirely new approaches to development and education. Great. So we're pioneers in interspecies child rearing with no instruction manual. We will figure it out together, Lixira said, her tone carrying the confidence of someone who had successfully ruled a village and managed a confused human engineer. We have managed more difficult challenges. This was true. The past months had brought complications none of them had anticipated, from Galactic Council investigations into unauthorized genetic experimentation to cultural integration challenges that required diplomatic creativity. Jake's role had evolved from atmospheric engineer to unofficial ambassador, helping establish protocols for human-Zolani cooperation that other settlements were beginning to adopt. The children, when they arrived 3 months later, exceeded every projection and shattered several assumptions about hybrid development. Named Kira, Tam, Zeph, and Naya, they possessed their mother's graceful elegance and their father's determined curiosity, along with abilities that fascinated the Federation's xenobiological research teams. They are remarkable, breathed Dr. Sarah Kim, the human geneticist who had traveled from Earth specifically to study the first successful human-Zolani hybrids. Enhanced pattern recognition, accelerated learning, and empathic abilities that allow them to interface directly with biotechnology. They represent a genuine evolutionary leap. Jake watched 4-month-old Kira successfully communicate with a plant that immediately began producing fruit, while her brother Tam appeared to be teaching the household's BioLite's new color combinations. I'm not sure I'm qualified to raise evolutionary leaps. None of us are, Dr. Kim replied. But they're also just children who need love, guidance, and parents who believe in their potential. The Galactic Council's final ruling on the hybrid program came when the children were 6 months old. Jake and Lixira sat in the village's council chamber, listening to a holographic transmission from Federation headquarters while their 4 toddlers demonstrated their abilities by accidentally turning the entire communication array into a musical instrument. The Zolani Hybrid Initiative is hereby approved and commended, announced Counselor Va then, whose poker face remained impressive even as the children's musical light show continued in the background. The success of this program demonstrates the potential for beneficial interspecies cooperation on unprecedented scales. Furthermore, continued Counselor Martinez, a human representative who seemed genuinely pleased with the outcome, the Federation is authorizing expansion of similar programs to other genetically challenged species, with protocols based on the Thera Prime model. Jake felt a mixture of pride and exhaustion. So we're the prototype for saving multiple alien species through romantic partnerships? You are pioneers in the truest sense, Counselor Va then confirmed. Your success has proven that genetic diversity challenges can be addressed through cooperation rather than technological intervention alone. After the transmission ended, Jake found himself on the village's observation deck, watching his children play in the garden while their bioluminescent laughter lit up the twilight. Lixira joined him, her presence warm and familiar. Any regrets? She asked. Jake considered the question seriously. A year ago, he'd been an unemployed engineer whose greatest accomplishment was preventing atmospheric processors from exploding. Now he was married to an alien queen, father to 4 unprecedented hybrid children, and inadvertently responsible for establishing protocols that might save multiple species from extinction. None, he said finally. Though I still think your recruitment methods could use some work. Essential Village Support Services was misleading. Would you have applied if the job description had been, marry alien queen and help repopulate declining species through revolutionary genetic cooperation? Probably not. I would have assumed it was spam. Then our recruitment methods were perfectly appropriate. Jake watched Kira help Tam teach a flower to change colors while Zeph and Naya collaborated on making a fountain sing in harmony. Their children moved through the world with confidence that bridged 2 species experiences, equally comfortable with human logic and Zilani intuition. What happens next? He asked. Next we raise our children, support the other hybrid families joining our community, and continue building something entirely new. Lixira's tone carried the satisfaction of challenges successfully met. Also, the atmospheric processors you installed last month have begun composing poetry. The village would appreciate your attention to that situation. Poetry writing atmospheric processors. Right. Jake smiled, realizing that after everything they'd been through, mechanical equipment developing artistic ambitions barely registered as unusual. I suppose I should add atmospheric poetry consultant to my resume. Along with pioneer of interspecies cooperation and father of the future, Lixira added. Jake looked at his family, his village, and the life he built from an employment opportunity that had been advertised as simple agricultural work. Sometimes the most important journeys began with the most misleading job descriptions. I love you, he told Lixira, words that carried the weight of transformation, possibility, and a future neither species could have imagined alone. I love you too, she replied, her carapace glowing with colors that meant home, happiness, and hope for tomorrow. In the garden below, 4 children who represented the best of 2 worlds continued their play, unaware that they were living proof that the universe's most beautiful solutions often began with someone simply saying yes to an impossible opportunity.